The Avengers writers confirm and deny the best Endgame fan theories. Avengers Endgame has only been in theaters for 3 weeks, and it's already crossed the $2.5 billion mark, putting it well within range of taking down the #1 movie of all time, Avatar. Sorry. However, despite its success, there are still numerous unanswered questions in the film which have left Marvel fans to create their own theories to resolve lingering story threads. Fortunately, Avengers Endgame writers Christopher Markus and Stephen McFeely sat down with the folks over at The Hollywood Reporter on their show Heat Vision Breakdown, where they debunked/added legitimacy to some of these hot topic issues, and we're going to break them down. Now, even though the Endgame spoiler ban is no longer in effect, we're still going to warn you that this episode of Nerdist News is going to confirm or deny several plot points in Avengers Endgame, so if you haven't seen it, now's your chance to leave before Thanos rips the Mind Stone out of your head. It appears you are still here, so let's get into it. First up, one of the biggest questions on every fan's mind: could the Avengers have just used the Infinity Gauntlet to bring Tony Stark back to life? Answer: sorry, Tony Stank fans.
Yes, this is Tony Stank.
According to Markus, the Gauntlet, as of yet, has not brought back anybody to life that wasn't removed by the Gauntlet. Tony was physically killed. Now, the thought process to the writer's answer is basically, if you got snapped, you could come back. However, if you died in other ways, you are out of luck. Of course, some fans are quick to point out how Vision was brought back to life using the glove. However, the writers maintain that the Time Stone simply reversed time to before he was killed, which is different than resurrecting the deceased. And speaking of Tony, some fans have also argued that there were multiple ways to defeat Thanos, but Doctor Strange picked the one reality where Thanos was defeated and the stones were destroyed, so they could not be used for evil ever again. Answer: again, sorry fans of House Stark. That name is cursed. Per the Endgame writers, the only way this works is if Tony dies. If you go back and watch Infinity War, when Strange says, 1, Benedict is just choked on emotion. Now that you know the end, go back and watch that moment. He means, you're going to have to die, Tony.
There was no other way.
Another hot theory from fans was whether or not Steve Rogers could have worn and used the Infinity Gauntlet based on his willpower alone, with many of them pointing out how he was briefly able to hold Thanos at bay in Infinity War with strength of will. Verdict: nope. He may be worthy enough to wield Thor's hammer, but he is not strong enough to use the gauntlet. Markus had this to say on the matter: I think Steve would be toast. I think in that moment, Thanos is impressed by Steve's will. He's like, I can't believe this guy who apparently has no powers is trying this. He's almost like, really? Dude, really? But it wasn't all denials from the screenwriting twosome. When asked about whether Bucky knew about Cap's plans to live his life in the past and who was Rogers going to hand the mantle of Captain America over to, the screenwriters agreed that this fan theory was partially true. While they do say that Steve never offered the shield to Bucky before Sam Wilson, they do say that Rogers did give Bucky a heads up to his ultimate plan. McFeely elaborated on this point. Steve clearly, before he stepped on that platform, told Bucky what he was going to do. Whether he knew he was going to appear on that bench, I don't think so. Why would Bucky say, I'm going to miss you, pal, if it was only going to be 5 seconds? Of course, the biggest bomb the two dropped was when they revealed the identity of Peggy Carter's secret husband, who she had 2 kids with, as established in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. It was, dun dun dun, Steve Rogers the entire time! While the screenwriters accept that many fans still believe that Rogers created an alternate timeline when he went to live his life out with Peggy and somehow made it back to the main Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline, but from Markus and McFeely's point of view, Steve was Peggy's husband all along. It was always our intention that he was the father of those 2 children, but again, there are time travel loopholes for that, said McFeely. Markus then went on to add, it does introduce the idea that there are 2 children who have somewhat super soldier DNA. Of course, if true, this throws a monkey wrench into a lot of people's Endgame continuity timeline.
We'll come back to this in a bit.
And it also means that he was for sure making out with his niece in Captain America: Civil War. But I digress. As for other fan theories that were debunked by the duo, nope, that wasn't Ben Mendelsohn's Talos when Peter Parker returns to school at the end of Endgame. Hopefully that admission will kill the secret invasion rumors that have been building since Captain Marvel. And remember those theories that the underwater earthquakes were a Namor the Submariner Easter egg? Also bogus. In fact, Markus summed it up pretty succinctly with, I wish we were that smart. So there you have it, a couple of theories proven, a whole lot of them disproven, but just think, all of these theories are just based on theater screenings. Wait until Endgame hits digital and Blu-ray when fans can pore over every frame and pixel with a fine-tooth comb. But what do you folks think? Do you like that Steve Rogers was Peggy Carter's secret husband? And if the Infinity Gauntlet essentially makes you a god, why couldn't it bring Tony back? Let's discuss. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and mash that little bell to get notified every time we go live with the show or drop a new video. Also, make sure to check out the latest episode of Just Plays every Wednesday from 1 to 4 p.m. Pacific on Geek and Sundry's Twitch. I'll be playing whatever I want, probably eating my lunch, and you can join us in the chat and talk some poo-poo mouth.